Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm gonna bring y'all into the kitchen with me. We are gonna make some salsa with some tomatoes and peppers that we are getting out of the garden. What we're gonna start with first is prepping our vegetables for the salsa, and I'm gonna do it in my chef style oven roaster that sits on the countertop. What I'm gonna do is take some onion and quarter it. I'm gonna use an immersion blender to blend all this up, so I don't need a fine dice on any of this. Immersion blender makes it really easy, but if you don't have one, you can always do it in a food processor or a blender yourself. And we're just gonna throw that in and start getting this warmed up. Now, I do have some tomatoes. I wanted to show you what you don't want to use for any of your products, whether you're making salsa, sauce, whatever. You can see this has a soft spot. It's going bad. It's got another soft spot on the back. This will go to the chickens. They will love it. I will not put it in my sauce. These have mold in it and they're kind of wrinkly. With all that, so that means it's going down into my tomato. I don't want to use that either. This one had blossom end rot and it's pretty small anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and give this to the chickens. You could cut off a big healthy chunk of that and use the rest if it's a big one, but I don't need to do that. This one's a little bit harder to see, but it's got a really big soft spot right here in the middle. If it was on the end here, I'd probably cut off half the tomato and use that. But with where it is, it's going to be going down and all over. I'll just give it to the chickens. This is another example of a soft spot that's pretty big for the tomato. Another kind of molding soft spot. This one, something chewed on the end and got on the inside. So we're going to give that one to the chickens. So I'm washing my tomatoes and peppers in the sink. So all I need to do for these is cut off the stem ends like this. And these are all okay. I've already checked most of them for spots. I'll double check again, see if there's anything that I do need to cull out for the chickens, but I'll just get that destemmed, cut in half, and throw into our pot, like so. There we go. And I do have one pepper here that kind of got a scabby tip, but I'm gonna go ahead and, like I said, use that like I would have for my tomatoes if they weren't in bad parts. Give that to the chickens, take off the stem, and I'll just cut this further in half. And I'm gonna put seeds and everything in there. I don't have that many peppers, so the heat will be perfect for us. If you don't want as much heat, take out some seeds, take out the white strips that are on the inside. I'll show you what I'm talking about. This part right here that attaches the seed pod to the inside, all of that has capsaicin in it, and that's where your heat is in your peppers. So if you want it milder, just take that stuff out. We like it hotter, so I'm gonna leave that. And I forgot to mention it earlier, but I did wash my sink thoroughly with soap and scrubbed it really good before I put my stuff in here. I don't like the way that looks on the inside, so I'm gonna give this one to the chickens. I have cherry tomatoes that are getting super ripe and we're not going to be able to eat them in time. So I'm going to go ahead and throw them into this mix as well. Be a good place to use them up. All you want to do is wash them, take the stem off, and I just cut them in half so I don't have to mess with the skins being stuck later. Just in case. You don't necessarily have to, but if I can prevent myself issues later, might as well. This one has a split in it. We've actually had quite a bit of rain lately, so I've had several that have been splitting. I'm gonna let the chickens have that. gonna stir this a little bit. We're gonna cover this up and we're just gonna let it sit for a while, a couple of hours, and come back and check on it, see how it's doing. When everything's cooked and soft, I'll use the immersion blender to blend it all up, add any seasonings that I want to, salt, pepper, cumin, you can do whatever, you can leave it as is, and then we will jar it up and get it water bath canning. So we'll see you in a little while. While our salsa is finishing up, I'm gonna go ahead and start the water, get it boiling, because the jars are gonna be hot with that salsa. We need our water to be hot, otherwise our jars could crack and break. So I've got our well water here, and we do have hard water, so I'm gonna add vinegar to it to help keep the hard water off of the jars and inside my pot as well. So I'm gonna put that on high and put the lid on and give that time to start boiling. We are back and ready to check on our salsa to see how it is doing. Let's open it up and see how it looks. Beautiful. The only thing I have done to this is added some dried cilantro flakes. I've got them, I'm gonna use them up. They're not gonna add much flavor, they don't seem to be, but it'll add some greens in there, make it look pretty. So what we're gonna do at this point is add some salt and pepper and some lime juice. I'm gonna keep it pretty simple on this batch, and then we'll blend it up. The lime juice is going to help give a little bit of a freshness flavor to it. It also raises the acidity in case your tomatoes happen to not be acidic enough to help with being able to water bath can it instead of needing to pressure can. I'm just eyeballing this based on how much I have in here. I haven't measured anything. I'm going ahead and just do 5 teaspoons worth of salt. I'll just do a couple of teaspoons of pepper. We don't need to rely on that too much because we have all those jalapeños and such in there. I'm going to take my immersion blender and blend it up to a nice consistency. You can do however chunky you want. Little chunks left. That looks really good. So at this point of our process, we are going to start jarring up in our clean jars. I'm going to use pints with my metal funnel and a nice ladle. It's already got salt in my product. I don't need to add any in here. We're just going to add it as is. What you want to do is go to an inch headspace. So the bottom ring here gets me an inch. And then move on to the next jar. you start getting lower, you can lift up your pot, the insert, and lean it. And you're not gonna be able to see very well, but it'll help make it where it pulls on one side and make it easier to scoop in. Scrape this down, get as much of it as I can. This last jar, I'm not going to worry about the headspace. I'm going to let this cool and put it in the refrigerator for instant use. It's already cooked, it's ready to go. You just want to use it up sooner rather than later. Our next step is to take a paper towel or cloth, get it wet, and just rub along the ring of the jar to get any salsa that might have dropped on it, so we make sure we get a good seal. If you have anything that's fatty, you'll want to use a little bit of vinegar instead of water just to break that fat. But for this, water is perfectly fine. And if you have a seal that doesn't fully seal, just let it cool off, stick it in the fridge and use it immediately within the next week, and it'll be just fine. You want to make it where you can, since you're going to go through the process, have them seal as best as possible. Now what we're going to do is put on our lids, clean lids. Correct procedure is to use brand new lids. They tell you not to recycle them. I do. You do what is best for you. I have not had an issue so far. I'll just change the markings. Salsa doesn't last very long for us anyway. Now, having your lid on, you put your ring on and do finger tight. You don't want it to be super tight. You're just making it hold the lid down, so this wax ring, the heat of the water is going to make the air escape through here, and it's going to seal. And that's what you're doing, getting any last bit of germs killed, which is the cooking process. But then you're getting a good seal to get oxygen out, which is going to be what promotes your mold growth. Fingertip tight here. And then we're going to put them into our water. Let's get them over to the stove so we can add them to our water. Over here, I've got my pot boiling that we started earlier, and I've got some extra water that I put on, and it was boiling earlier. I just got it on low in case I need to top it off with some more water. What you're looking for is about 1 inch or 2 on top of the jars, just to water bath can them for 15 minutes for this size. But if I need to add extra water, I don't want to wait and let it cool down or anything. I want to be able to just put it on and get it covered. So let's add our jars and see where we're at. I do have a liner on the bottom of this pot, and since our salsa is hot, we're fine. It's warmed up our jars, adding it to them, so we're fine to just add them to this hot water now. I'm going to turn the heat on that back up. It was bubbling pretty hard. Be careful of the water as it gets full here. Got 2 jars extra. I'm not going to be able to fit in there. Wait. Something broke, I think. All right, we're gonna leave these out. That's what it was, that one broke.
Wow.
Okay, so lesson learned here. Glad this actually happened so you guys can see it. This jar had an issue with it. The bottom broke, so I'm pulling this one out. I'm gonna leave the bottom in for now, pull it out later. It's not gonna harm our stuff because we've got those lids and rings on holding it. It's not gonna get in, but I do need to add some more water in here. Let me put this in the trash real quick. All right, you can see the level of the water. We are gonna have to clean these jars also afterwards because of all the tomato, the salsa and stuff that's in there. It's over just a little bit, but I wanna add, like I said, I want it to be an inch or two thick. So we're gonna add some of this water, and that's why I have this going so that it's ready to just put in. There we go, and do a little bit more. There we go. All right, we're gonna put the lid on and let this, it's coming back to a boil. So we're gonna let this come back to a boil real quick and then start the timer for 15 minutes. See you in a few. Okay, our water is at a rolling boil again, so I'm gonna set our timer for 15 minutes. And then we'll be back to pull them out. Timer has gone off, so we turn that off and turn off our burner. Carefully remove the lid with the steam away from you, because that is very hot. And then use these special grippers to pull out your jars. And you want to put it on a towel so that the temperature difference doesn't break your jars. There we go, we heard our first ping. That means that the air has gone out from the heat and the seal is made. I would wipe these off, but they're very hot. So I have to wait until later to clean them off, but it's okay. It stinks that we lost a jar, but at least you guys got to see what it looks like and how to handle it. Doesn't happen very often at all, but sometimes they get minutely damaged, they just have an issue with them, and they break. So I'm gonna let this water sit here and cool down so that I can easily get the piece of glass that's in there out whenever I pour the water out slowly, that I can dispose of it properly. Usually I put a towel over just to absorb any water, but since these are so dirty, I'm just gonna use a paper towel. Here's one that has done a ping. You can see that center bubble, if you will, it's now a little bit of a dip right here. And that's one that has sealed properly. And that's what you're gonna be looking for. And then you just, whenever it's cooler, you can kind of feel it if it goes down and stays. But they should go down on their own. Once they're totally cold, you pull off the rings. You don't want to store them like that because if you have a failure, you want to know about it. Now is the time so you can stick it in the fridge and have it temperature controlled and know that you can use it. You don't want it to be sitting there molding on the shelf. I'm gonna put a towel over it like this to kind of absorb some of that water and get some of those tomatoes. And we're gonna let these sit overnight, probably tomorrow around noon or so. They'll be cool enough to handle, and I'll start pulling off the rings to get washed and wipe down the jars. Once they're totally cooled, I can put them in my storage area, put them neatly on a shelf. I will label them appropriately. I'll mark out markings that are on there, and I'll put on there what's in there. Fairly obvious for us, but again, if you put it by sauce, you can forget what's in there. So I'll put on there that it's salsa and the month and the year so that we know when it was made, so we can do first in, first out, because we do have a couple of jars left in my storage at the moment. But I knew we needed to make some more, and we had tomatoes ready, so why not? Thank you so much for joining me in the kitchen today, and hopefully you learned something and enjoyed the process, and you're encouraged to make your own salsa and try water bath canning yourself. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. Be sure to like and subscribe and all the fun things for the algorithm for our channel. It really helps out more than you know, and we appreciate you joining us. Have a blessed day. Bye.